So I think this is all matched up now, is all aligned. The area that I want to look at next is just this bit here and get this to work, and then I want to start putting the details in on the bonnet area. So first thing to do is we can, although everything doesn't actually join up quite, we can actually go into evaluate, and we can go check mod, and we can just look and see whether there's any problems. So if I say report all, and we go down here and we put all of the settings on G0 through to G2. Now notice before, so which version am I in? I'm in 2024. You can see it says G0 0.00000, which isn't actually correct. And I mean, I don't know whether that is the value it's using, but that's what it's telling us. And if we go into construction options and have a look at our settings that we've got these settings at 0.001, and it's not coming up here. And what I found before, and this wasn't the case in previous versions, is that it looks like you have to switch that on and then switch it off, and then suddenly the numbers come up correctly, which shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be like that. It should be that those numbers should be picked up from here. That's what it's always been the case in previous versions. So I think that's a little bit of a bug in the software. So you just switch that on, switch that off. If all else fails, you can always type the values in, but you want to make sure they're the same as this, otherwise you're not going to get very accurate results. So that looks like it's doing the right thing. So if I say I've got all my surfaces visible, all errors, and we're just all edges. Now what it does do, you'll notice that when we do that check, so where it's not picking anything up, it is actually saying it's basically saying it's passed the tests, all the tests. Where it's failing is along here, but actually we've got a sharp edge here, which we know about. We know there's an angle mismatch there, and that's slightly worrying actually, now I think about it, that we've got an angle mismatch which crosses over, and so it's going one way and then the other way, which isn't really what we want. Yes, and there's an area here which it says it gets to 3.93. Now the reason it says it gets to 3.93 and then seems to be fine, well, it's coming up with the yellow symbol, so we know it's not fine, but it's sort of not showing anything there. The reason it's doing that is because down here I've got tangent angle maximum 4 degrees. So in other words, when it gets beyond 4 degrees, it thinks I'm not going to bother measuring that, because there's obviously that's supposed to be there as a sharp angle, but in fact in this case it would be good to see that angle. I wasn't actually I wasn't really looking at this area. I wasn't really thinking about this. I was thinking more position, but now I spotted that where it crosses over, that's actually not really what we want. We need to, I think we're going to have to deviate from the mesh in this area to get this to be correct, because you know, here we're saying there's a positive angle between the two. Here it's going the other way, so we're getting convex here and then concave here, and that's not really what should be going on there. So we need to do some modification there to get that to work. So we'll have to look at the data again. But on this edge here, if I just I'll get rid of all the locators again. So if I change this angle up to something bigger than this, let's say 40 degrees. So now it'll report on all of that edge, hopefully. Basically anything under 40 degrees it's going to report on. Right, yeah, it's got 40 in there. And so now it's reporting all the way along here, and it might be that actually this is the problem area rather than this one, that this is actually a positive angle and this one's a negative angle. So let's have a look at the sections on that. So let's go into here and we'll look at X sections, and then we get a clue as to what's going on. So yeah, if you look at the sections here, you can see it goes that way, which is correct. That's what we want. But here, it starts to go the other way, and the deepest point is here. It's quite a small angle. It's two degrees, but it's still wrong, because we don't want that sort of going one way and then the other. We really want that tangency obviously it needs to come to 0 here because everything merges together, but up here it's got to be actually progressing from this point all the way through here. So it's something I hadn't spotted before, and that's the problem when you start to check your model thinking everything's fine, all the highlights look fine, and you discover things like this. Now this one, the jump there, I think is just down to the scale. So let's have a look at those. If I go and pick those locators and go information window, and we'll have a look at the scale of the display that we've got on. So we've got a display of 13 on that one, and then the other one is 40. So this is why we're getting this jump. So we want the same scale on both. So let's make them both 40. We'll make them 40 exactly. So this is what I'm looking at, is there where it says display show comb, and so you've got the position scale. If we were looking at position, got the tangency scale, which is what we're interested in. So let's make that 40. So now you can see they join up, which makes sense because these surfaces are all joining up. But if you don't put the scales the same, then you're not going to be able to see really what's going on. So we're getting this progressive angle break, but down here it's not progressive. So I'm just going to save this, although I haven't done anything, but it's just good to save that diagnostic on there. So we need to do something down here, sadly, because I did actually think we'd fixed it, but it's not the case. And so just to be on the safe side, we'll just pick everything and we'll delete all of the construction history, just so that we don't end up with any problems from old construction history that we don't want. So unfortunately, we need to modify this again. So we've got this surface here is trimmed back to here. We're going to have to modify this surface to actually lift this other surface. That might be one way to do it. So we might have to modify this surface, or it might be a case of modifying this surface. Maybe that's the thing to do. But we really want this surface in here is mainly driven by this surface. So maybe that's the thing that we need to do. Let's have a look at the mesh and see how far out we are from the mesh. So it's not the position so much of that mesh, it's just the way the angle comes down. So you can see on the mesh, it actually, I mean, maybe this edge is slightly different where the mesh has got it, so that the mesh, it's actually, it looks to me as though that line should actually be over there slightly, but we're not going to change that. Obviously we could pull these points down and that might actually help. I just need to sort of decide what the best thing to do is. Actually on this section here, we are low on the data, which we did see before. I didn't think it was a problem because obviously we're not on the mesh everywhere anyway. But actually, now I look at that, that's probably the reason why we've getting this angle, because this edge has come down too far. So if we were to raise that edge up, that'll get us closer to the data and also get rid of this angle. I mean, it is quite a small angle, and so it shouldn't take too much to fix it, I think, hopefully. So I'm going to have to do an align again. So let's do an align, and we're going to use history once more. So I'm going to use history on this edge here. So I'm going to align that with curvature on. We're going to make sure that we constrain it as much as possible by putting Z on, and we'll put history on. So that gets lifted as we pull this surface up, and we'll take the CVs off just for the time being, only to make it easier to see. And then we also want to align this in position, because otherwise this is all going to fall to pieces. So once more, we've got to put history on. This one needs to be aligned to that edge as well. And I've got position influence of 0, 1, so it's going to just keep the CVs more or less where they are. And then I'll align this one to that. And I'm just going to do position only. But we're interested in the tangency, so let's just change that from here to tangency, so we get that display back. And I should just check that that scale there is also 40, so it's consistent with everything else, and it's a lot higher there. So actually that gives us a better clue as to the relative size of that. You can see it's quite small, really. It's 2 degrees. It's not very big. So I think we've got history on there. Let's just queue that. Yeah. So I'm using Q just to check. We've got history on there. That one's not picking up. So did I not put history on? No, it did. Yeah. So this should all now move. I'm just going to save that under the same name again. So I'm going to start moving this surface in here, and I want to move this surface. Obviously, we've done a lot of work to get the highlights pretty good, and so maybe the thing to do is, rather than disturb the whole thing, I'm going to use Pmod, and I'm going to move it. I'll put some mouse sensitivity on. I'm going to pick that corner point there, and then I'm just going to blend it in both directions, maybe to that point there, and then we just lift that up until that angle hopefully disappears. Now, why is that? Okay, so that's obviously, now it's opening up the gap there, but it's not very big, and it's taken the tangency off the display, unfortunately. But that's just because of the align there. So let's just go into that locator again. I don't know why actually it was in the align that I actually specified that I wanted tangency, and it's because I suppose because it's failing the gap. That's the trouble. So what we should do there is change the position of influence so that the gap gets closed up. Hopefully, there we go. So now the gap's got closed up. It's gone back to telling us about the tangency. I'm just checking the scale of these because the system seems to just randomly change the scale sometimes. It says it's 40. The fact that they don't join up, I think, is just down to the fact that these don't align, and that's they don't align because I can't put alignment on this edge and that edge at the same time. It won't let me do that. So they're only slightly different, but now you can see this is all going the right way, which is what we want. And we are changing, we had to change the shape a little bit in here versus the mesh. I mean, the other thing is I've pulled this edge up, but actually we could pull that down in the middle. It's got too much crown on it really now, and so we could pull that down, but obviously I want to be careful that I don't completely destroy the highlights. I'm hoping that because I did the Pmod there and it's blended across some of the CVs there, that the highlights are still looking okay. I'm hoping, yeah. So they look okay. So let's put create curves on there and only show the curves so we can see a bit clearer what's going on here. So I just want to see if I can bring the crown down here a bit. And again, I'm going to use Pmod to do that. So I'm going to go Pmod on, say, this point looks okay. It's quite flat there. So maybe it's that one, and I'll just move that one and that one at the same time, because that's got too much crown on it as well, and we just pull that down. But maybe we also need to, maybe I just need to do individual points. So by pulling that down, this is also increasing the angle, which is a good thing. As long as it's progressive, that's the main thing. Let's pull that point down there. So I'm pulling individual points to just try and get the highlights looking better, and I just want to get it closer to the data again, reasonably close to the data. Just have to experiment with all the CVs. And I mean, the angle is at that point is now quite healthy. It's 6.7 is a good angle. I can't touch those ones because obviously that's G2 into that. Just trying to get rid of this. Is a bit essy here, which I don't particularly like, but I mean, maybe I'll have to change the edge back a little bit, as long as we don't go too far. So I can see the angles coming down, so we've got to be careful that we don't go back to where we started from. That was sort of going in the right direction, I think, in terms of the highlights. So the angle is coming down now to about 4 degrees, which I'm not really. I don't want to make it too small, of course, but at the same time, I need decent highlights across here. And the other clue is this pattern of CV is always. I mean, you find that eventually you just have to stop, and you won't necessarily get highlights perfect everywhere. It's just trying to straighten that out a little bit. So I'm still going. The angle's going down. I've got more crown than there is on the mesh. That's for sure. Just check that angle is going. It's all going the right way. There's a bit down there where it's going the wrong way, but it's so small that really wouldn't make any difference, because we're going to put a fillet across there. So I don't think that would make a significant amount of difference, and we could always well, I say we could always get rid of that, but maybe that's going to be trickier than I think. So obviously we've got curvature on that end. We could pull that point down, but then of course we will break the curvature there. So it might be possible just to move that point up or down rather. So yeah, we can pull that down. So at least that pretty much goes to 0 there. Because there is, we can add more angle to this by just pulling these ones down on this side if we wanted to. And we are quite high on the data there, in fact, so that'd be a possibility. But this is mainly driven by that surface. So this one, we need to align this to that in a minute. So this one isn't aligned because I've not aligned it. And so let's align that. The chances are that well, hopefully that will still be the correct way, that it won't cross over. So let's go and align that. This one here. So it destroys the history on this edge. That's what happens there. And then we'll open up a gap, of course. And so let's try putting vector Z on and see if that, so the gap is now 0.06, so we can fix that for sure. But of course, what we might have done there, so let's go into here and try and fix that. So I'll take history off because we're trying to align on multiple edges now, so we don't really want the history on anymore. So that says we're position aligned, but let's see what the tangency says, and that's okay. Just want to make sure that that and that are the same scale, which pretty much guarantee they're not. So that says make them both 40, and that's okay now. I'm going to just increase that to 200, just to make sure that when we come down here, it cuts off at a certain point here, and it's cutting off when we've got the angle relative to this angle, which is from the construction settings. So if we really wanted to see it all the way to the end, if we put in 0, that'll show us all the way to the end there. But you can see it sort of comes and goes a little bit. If you really wanted to get rid of that, you know, we've got some CVs there we could possibly move. I've got to watch the curvature on the bottom edge. Oh, we've maintained the curvature on the bottom edge, and we've managed to work with that, so that's good. And then this one as well, we could increase the angle there. So we just want to make sure that's positive all the way. It's changed the scale again, but it's just got a mind of its own. So the scale's, oh yeah, no, it hasn't. What am I talking about? I changed the scale, didn't I, to 200 on that one, but not the other one. So I need to make them both the same so we can see that they cross over. So, you know, ideally you want this to be a nice, smooth, nice smooth shape. I'm not going to worry about that. It sort of, it goes up, it sort of flattens off a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get away with that. And all depends on how much time you have on your hands to be able to spend doing these things. But if you do that, then obviously if you get that really smooth across there, then you get a better result, of course. So we'll go with that. So I'm going to save that. Right. So this wasn't what I was planning to look at all, but that's so often the way. The scale on there, what's that one? That's 40. Change that to 200 so we can see that that's the how it changes across the whole thing. The reason why we get two spikes off here is because one is normal to this surface, which is that one, and the other one's normal to the other surface, so it's showing you both of them. So I'm now going to get rid of those and get rid of those locators. We can put in, so before we do anything else, let's just take these highlights off. So if I go back into ISO ang, take show curves off, and we should look at this actually. So that looks okay. And then we'll delete the curves, and then we can switch off that shading. So I just want to make sure that we've got everything aligned around here before we move on to this area at the back. So let's just get around here. And I'm just going to manually pick them. Okay, that's changed. It's so easy to think, oh, I've done it, and then find that you haven't done it. There's a big surface missing in here, which we need to pick up from one of the other layers, which I think is body side. And I'll just put that all into the same layer there. I'm not going to check all of that. We know that that's not of interest at the minute. But it never pays to assume that things are right. So this one, I know we've never aligned to anything. This one's a curve on surface there at the minute. It's not trimmed out. This one doesn't have a curve on surface, and so it's not picking up anything. We've got this, that. Let me take the sections off just to make this clearer. So that's all aligned, and then we've got some position alignments as well, like this edge, that one, and not along this edge. This is another edge. I've never checked this because I can see it's okay, but you know, if you've got one surface below the other, you really want to you could put position on there, and just check that that all goes the correct way. So if you scale that up, what you don't want is this coming up here and then going down, because then that would show that that bottom surface isn't actually below the other one, but in this case you can see it is. So I don't really need that one on now because I can see it anyway, but it's worth checking sometimes that that is the case. So let's go and I'll just save that under the same name again. Now we've got all the diagnostics on. So we're going to fix this lot over here. One thing that did occur to me, this surface here, what layer is that on? Let's put that on body side there, just get it out of the way. One thing that did occur to me is that I've built this surface in there. I've never really looked at it from the side, and I need to just squash that up and just check that that's actually a good shape there. So it does continue, it doesn't follow the data exactly, but then we deviated from the data, but we just wanted to check that top edge was okay, which it does look as though it is. Before we do an alignment here. So let's go and align these surfaces together. So we want to align, we've got this one down here, that's the biggie. Let's put that on, and we might as well put the CBs on here. And then we're going to align this end. Now this one here, we've got curvature continuity into that top surface. Let's get rid of the mesh. So we've got the curvature continuity all the way along there, it says, but of course there's a point where this surface here disappears. I mean, in fact, we created this enormous surface here, most of which is just going to be chucked in the bin, to be honest. And I'm going to leave it that size, just in case we ever need to get back to it, but we could actually make it smaller. It makes no difference. It'll make no difference to the model if I made that smaller, but I'm just going to leave it at that size at the minute. But there's only this bit that we need to align into it. And then beyond here, we can do whatever we like. So in fact, this is a point where we need to split this surface up, and we also need to split this surface up. And we should do that before we align here, because if I try and align it there, it's going to break that curvature all the way along there, and we'll never get it to work. And so let's go into top view there. Something over there, I don't know what that is. Might as well get rid of that if we see things like that lying around. It's just a curve that got left, a fragment of a curve. So we want to split that there. I'm just going to align this into there just so that we get this flowing through, make sure that that's going on there. So if we go G2 there, this one into here, and we do G2, and I don't put vector on because I want edge on. In other words, edge just means that this is guaranteed to be then smooth through there rather than coming off at an angle. So I just wanted to make sure that that was going on before I start doing this. And so now we're going to detach at this point. So let's go into Object Edit, Detach on this surface here, and then we can find the intersect between those two. Now, yeah, it always catches me out, doesn't it, that one, where we have to put in a point. And so we put in a point at the intersect of those two, which is just there. You see it snaps to that point, sort of snaps to that point. Seem to wander around a bit. Oh, what's going on here? We got a curve there or something? Or maybe two surfaces? No, what's that then? Not sure what that is. That is a curve. Why did it not pick it up? Maybe I just, oh, it was a curve, yeah. So it's just, I thought it was a bit weird because it didn't seem to pick up the intersect very clearly. It seemed to be going backwards and forwards, and I thought, oh, what's going on? So it's well to check, because if we picked up the curve, of course, then we'd have a problem trying to get things to align here. So let's detach. I mean, of course, what you can do, if you know that all of the curves are temporary, you can always just drag a window around everything, pick those up, maybe isolate them and see, well, do I need any of those? No, pretty certain I don't. So I might as well delete them, get them out of the way, and they'll stop annoying us in the future. So we've detached that across there in that view. and we need to detach this one as well. So now this one, yeah, I can pick that up because it's an end point. It's not an intersect, so it should pick that up fine. Didn't need the point. I seem to have lost the point anyway. I don't know where that's gone. Obviously got deleted and or just disappeared, and sadly the locators have gone, which is slightly annoying. I don't think, I mean, that shouldn't happen. Those locators shouldn't just disappear like that. And because I've not deleted them. And the only thing is where it says pick curves, if I just go and check that, because I did delete curves, it's only got curves on. So because these have actually, where it's got pick curves, it's actually come from this component selection, pick component, and you can switch things on and off there. So if you go into pick, you've got this option here, pick component, and you could set up variants of this. So if you only wanted to delete construction options, for example, you can switch everything off and just have that on, and you can save that. It's worth saving that in your shelf as an option, or in your marking menus, various options for deleting various different things. But I've not deleted the locators. They just disappeared, which is annoying because now I have to put them back in. So this one here, that one there, I'm not going to go do all of those. We know they're okay. This one is not aligned to anything at the minute, and that's what we need to do. There's no curve on surface there. We just got this big surface and no curve on surface there. So let's do that one. So if I go into Object Edit and align, G2, project in the Z direction, that one there, and it's going to be into this surface here. Now that's got quite a high degree really, and we should really make that, for the time being, make that degree 3, because it feeds into here. But of course when we get to this point, then it's going to need it, because we're going to we need to align into this end, so that junction between the two, we will need that higher amount of curvature there. It's broken that by a small amount, so we've got project there. So let's go into this edge. So I'm not working with history, otherwise we just end up going around in circles. So I've aligned it again with edge on, and we've got edge, so it's flowing through. This one should be fine, because all we've done in there is detach. So when you detach, it's 100% accurate. You get exactly the same result as the original. It's not like trim convert to a random curve where you get an approximation. This is 100% accurate. So all of that aligns now, and we should be able to go and pick that surface and then just trim it back to all those curves of surface. So they're all green there. So we're gradually trimming things out here. So let's go and try and align this. Before I do that, let me just save again. And we're going to have to put, I mean, this is another one where if you, in my shelf, so if I bring in the shelf, which is under here, so I've got default shelves. I've created 3 versions of SurfCon. So rather than having to go into that menu all the time, into that icon all the time, I've got this one, which is just G0. That's one variant. G1 is that one, and G2 is that one. So you've got those variants. And you know, like detach is another one where I've got no, sorry, not detach, but you know, you can put in your own versions of various things. So here, for example, I've got 4 versions of the same menu. So I've got edit point, curves. I mean, I change these quite regularly, to be honest, because I can't remember the last time I used an edit point curve with degree 2, but I put them in at some point for the various degrees that are in this menu. And so instead of having to go into the menu and change those, I've got all the variants as separate icons in here. And this one's another one with align. So these are aligned with history, which I use with my curves. So I've got G1 with history on, and G2 with history on, and so forth. So you can have multiple variants, but obviously I've been trying to use the palette just to show you where things are. And okay, so let's go to ServCon, just check these edges, that one there. Now that one's not aligned, I'm pretty certain, which it isn't. So it's a good job I checked that. We know that's not aligned. So first of all, I'm going to have to align this. And so let's go into Object Edit, and we're going to go Align, G2 Edge to there, and it's going to be a partial edge. And if we look at that in side view, it's done that. Let me just go back there. So I'm going to put create history on there, because the advantage of create history sometimes is that the fact that you can undo it. So if you come out of the function, you can undo it. Proxy display. So it changed it very much? No. So you can just about see the green lines. It's not actually changed it that much. And but in this area, this is another place where you really want to use vector, not with Z, because you can see that's not good, but in the Y direction. So in other words, in the side view, it doesn't change it. It just moves the CVs in and out to try and get curvature onto that edge there. And then we need to align this into here. So this is going to be another partial edge. So we're going to align that into there. Now it's partial edge. I've got position influence of 1 on. So you can see from the pale green lines, which is the proxy display, that's where we were, and that's where we ended up. So it's moved the CVs quite a lot to make them the same as this. We could try position influence of 0 if you really wanted to keep those points where they were, but of course the gap's not going to be 0 then. So making it 1 does make sense, but we've got hiccup in the CVs. If you look at those ones, and then it suddenly goes up there, and this is where we'd want to use some blend to get from here to this other end. And so we can then add some extra rows there. Can't go for this one because it's going to break the curvature there, so we have to go back to there. I mean, if you feel that you want to blend it all the way from here to here, then we can do that. This does not look good, and the reason is because the blend factor is 0, and if I make that 1, what it'll do is do a better transition between this area and there. So that's probably, quite acceptable. That's a lot nicer. If you wanted to blend it from here all the way to here, which would be another possibility, you can't do it in this function in one hit. I'm just going to save that just in case this is horrible, but so this is one advantage of create history. So if I come out of that function and then I want to go back in and carry on modifying it, I can even go back to my original just by saying revert, which would take me right back to the original. So that is the beauty of create history sometimes. But if I want to blend it from here to here, all the way through here, I could actually choose to pick up all the rows. I'm breaking the curvature, of course, but I choose to do that. Now with 1 on, it holds the CVs pretty much where they were, but if you change the blend factor down towards 0, like a halfway position, you can actually see, it's halfway between where it was and where it is. At the same time, of course, you could put a similar sort of thing on here, where you go from that position. So we go with position influence of 1 on, so it keeps the points exactly where they are there. We reduce the blend factor so that we're not disturbing the curvature at the other end, and we can make the blend factor of 1, so it does a nice transition from one end to the other, or in this area. And if we've got history on, then of course we can play around with this one. I'm looking along the ends of those CVs there. We can play around with, say, the blend factor there, and you can see then across all of that area what's the nicest solution. I've broken the curvature there, I know that, but that enables us to put those into a better position. Now I need to fix these edges. So what I'm going to do then is to delete the history, because otherwise that's going to cause a problem, and then we can go back into align. So this time I don't want blend on, don't want partial on, I don't really want to create history on, and I'm just going to align that into there, and we'll take the position influence down to 0, so it just holds the points where they were. That's not quite aligning. It aligns perfectly before because it was a projection onto a surface, which always works well, usually works better. But you can see if I change the position influence to 0.05, so it's hardly moved those CVs at all, it's actually fine. So you play around with that position influence sometimes just to tweak it a little bit, and it may work out okay. And then of course this edge here as well. Now that's going to be a partial edge, but that's okay. I've put, strictly speaking, that should be 0 to keep the CVs where they are. And then this one as well. So this one's slightly out 0.00101, so nothing at all. So a tiny bit of position influence, that will fix that. And then this is fixed to that, that's fixed to that. We need to align this one this way. So I've got to align that into there. It's going to be an edge. It's not a partial. Position influence of 1, so the CVs join up exactly, and we've got edge, so it's flowing nicely. And then we just need to fix this one. So this is going to be a partial edge into there, and we put position influence of 1 on. That's why we had to do this blending thing going on here. It's breaking this edge, so let's just try G1 and see if we can get, if we've got G2 on there. Not that it actually worked anyway, because it's not actually improved. So it's still saying a gap of 0.05. Now if we try and align that, that's quite a big gap. It's not a very big gap, but it is big in CAD terms. So the best thing to do is get rid of that curve on surface. So if I untrim that, and we'll get rid of that curve on surface there. Now that curve on surface was all the way along there. So if I pick that surface and try and trim it, you can see where that curve on surface was by the pink spots where there's no curve on surface. So it won't harm to actually just realign that with project on in the Y direction. And project, as I say, usually gives you a better result, and there, thank goodness it did. And then we've got that breaking the curvature again. So let's see if we can get away with G1 there. Look at the G2. Hooray! So that's all aligned now. And then we can trim this back to there, and then I'm going to save that. And so the other surfaces we've got in here, there's this one here. Let's go put some evaluators on here. So okay, we know that's not aligned. This surface in here is that's going to be position aligned along this edge, and it'll wash out to nothing, and it needs to be aligned into that surface eventually. But it's going to be position aligned into this surface. So first of all, let's make those into templates, just so that we don't have to look at them. They're not going to interfere. So I want to make sure this surface actually aligns into here, which it doesn't do at the minute. So let's go into Object Edit Align, G2 Edge. It's going to be a partial edge. And we're going to do that. And right, so we've got partial on. And oh yeah, we've got edge on there. So this is, in other words, that's tanning through. This one doesn't matter whether it's edge or skew really. So if you put it on skew, it goes back to more of the original spacing, which is really what we want. Now it's thrown the CVs quite a bit, and because the reason being is that we've got position influence of 1 on. I wasn't really expecting those to move in that sense at all, but have I got some setting on there that's strange? Doesn't matter. It's just unexpected. I wasn't expecting those to move. I was expecting these CVs to move up and down, but they're not. So let's make that 1 anyway. So that'll make that as tight as it can. Obviously it's not tight at the minute. It's not aligned. But then we're trying to align it into a higher degree surface, admittedly over a smaller distance. So it may get away with a smaller degree. We may not need degree 5 like on that surface, but it looks like we have to increase the degree to get it to align. So that's degree 4. It does look as though we have to have degree 5. So I'm having to match the degree in this case to this surface, which is it's slightly unfortunate because it just means we then have more CVs to deal with if that's thrown the shape out at all. But let's have a look. So we've got degree 7 going around here, so we ought to put on some blend here just to pick up those rows in the middle, and I'll make the blend factor of 1 so it transitions as smoothly as possible between those. But this might cause a little bit of a problem when we come to look at the curvatures. The curvatures going around this corner I think are going to be interesting because it's going from one end where it's quite an SE shape to the other end where it's all convex. And so what we're looking at there, don't want both of those on. So looking at those sections there, first of all, I need some more of them. So where we've got degree 7, we've got 8 holes. So if I make that number 8 rather than 4, so we get one set of curvature more or less on every CV or every hull. That's actually quite progressive. So what's happening there is it's S-ing at this end. So we've got an inflection. The inflection point is the point at which the curvatures cross over. It goes from here to here to here. It sort of wanders off a little bit and comes back and then disappears because it's all convex at the other end. And most of this surface is cut away actually, but this is what it's got to do, something like this, to be honest. And we'll have a look at the highlights and just see what they do. Those look absolutely fine. That's the Y highlights. The X one is going to do something like this. So this is showing there's some sort of inflection, some crossover, but they look okay as well. Do the horizontal, vertical. Let's put more repeats on so we can see some more lines there, and just see that the transition's okay. So it's going to look a little bit strange, and that's because of this S shape that comes in. But it looks okay. Like I say, most of that's cut away in anyway, and we might look at that shading and just say, oh, that looks fine. So we'll go with that. Thank goodness. And so let's go and pick those two, those locators there. I'll delete those. I need to look at those. And we can also take the CVs off this one, just so that we're not looking at that. And then we can bring back our templates and change that back into normal geometry. And so we'd need to align this around here. Now this locator here is between that blue surface and that end, so we don't really want to be looking at that either. In fact, we need to I'm just going to remove that for a minute and make it invisible. So in other words, I did the display invisible. So I'm using hotkeys for that one. So let's align this way. So I'm going to align that into an edge. It's a partial edge. That one into there. We want that to be flowing. This can be flowing, but yeah, we'll keep that flowing. It's better if this is flowing. It makes alignment easier, but sometimes things come off at an angle. I've got blending on, which I don't want because that's affecting the other end. Let's just have a look at that from the top. So that's okay. I mean, the CVs could be better positioned, I think. Well, maybe if I'd pick vector, no, the position of the CVs wasn't great to start with. So this one wanders a little bit. So let's squash that view up a bit. Now, if I slide these CVs that way, it's not going to make that much difference. It shouldn't break the curvature, hopefully. So what I'll do is I'll use slide. We can do a proportional modification. Can we do that? No, we can't with slide. So I'm going to go and slide these points. The other way we could do that, because I want these proportional, they seem to or be related to each other. I mean, I could just drop the degree. Is one way of doing it. So let's drop the degree. I know it breaks that end, but then we've got fewer CVs to deal with. Then we can do the slide, and so we'll move that point. Oh, it has brought up. I thought you could do that, but it didn't seem to want to have both on at the same time. So I can actually have that on. So having changed the degree, I didn't need to do that, but you can actually have that with slide on. So I want to pick up that point. That point's fine. It's just that one. And then you just got to make sure you pick the right arrows, because those arrows are for picking more CVs. This one's for sliding it. And the problem we find sometimes is trying to get that to turn white. There it is. It's gone white now. So in fact, I'm going to have to move that second point anyway. And obviously we've broken the curvature there. But I just wanted to make that edge a bit better. So I'm just going to move an individual point now. So I want to take, it's that button there, of course. So I want to slide that point there. So proportional mod actually didn't do me any favors at all. But now that looks a bit better. So let's go into align. So G2 edge partial into there, and we want to, because that's just moving that out, and the reason that's moving that again is because of edge. It's trying to follow that shape too much, bearing in mind that shape's actually going around this corner, and we don't want that. So we've got to put vector on to hold that in place better, and we've got to put vector on in the Z direction so it holds that. And then we found that we had to increase the degree up to 5 to get that to align there, and that looks much better. It's just okay, so let's bring back this surface. So I just do display, make everything visible, Alt V in my case, and so we've got to align this to on all sides there. So I'm going to align this big one first in position onto that surface there. Now there could be a little issue here because these feather into each other, and it might be that'll break the curvature when I do this. But I'll try it anyway, because it's worth showing how we fix that if that is the case. So if I try and align that there, it's actually done a fantastic job. But often what happens if this is coming in tangent to this edge and this one's coming in tangent, then you may find that when you project it, it doesn't actually go to the end there. It might actually bring it back a little bit and break the position on that end. And the solution is just to change this surface ever so slightly, just move that point outwards just a tiny bit so the tangent is slightly broken, and then you're more likely to be able to align it there. Now it's not a position aligned at the moment, but very close. So that'll just be a question of increasing the degree again in this direction. So let's make that 6. So that's now 0.003. Let's try 7. Absolutely fine now. And then we need to align it this way into here. So this is going to throw these CVs up in the air, and that can be a problem. So you can see, that's having an effect here. Also, it's not position aligned, and we're down to 0.004, so it's quite small, but it's still not position aligned. And so the only thing we can do there, I'm sure, is to split this up. So let's do that. It's because this is getting a complex area now, so we're going to have to split that. Let me just save that again. Right, so we're going to have to detach that one. Now, most of the problem is probably going to be around here because we've got the position matching there, curvature. That's all a lot going on here. This, we're only curvature matching it really into here, and position match on that side. So there's more going on this side. So I would say that we probably want to make the surface here smaller than this one. That means that we get more CVs in that area. And what I then need to do, because I've split it, I need to delete all of those locators around there because they're not correct. They're not going to be picking up the right things. So we need to delete those, otherwise we get into a mess. We also need to just make that invisible for it temporarily, so we can put the diagnostics on again. So put G2 on here. Now I think, yeah, we still got the curve on surface there. We should delete the curve on surface actually and reproject that on, because that curve on surface went all the way from there to there. So you always have to then use partial edge, which is okay. It's just a little bit inconvenient. Plus, aligning with project on, as I say, is often the better solution anyway. So let's put G2 on there, which won't be G2 now. And then we put G2 on there, which will be fine because it's the detach, and those will be 100% accurate. And then let's go and try and align these together. So maybe this time I'll do a G2 project on this edge first. Wow, that's gone straight in. Didn't even change it. So just by making that surface smaller, we've managed to get it to align on both those edges. I could try dropping the degree if I wanted to. No, it's not going to have it. So that's absolutely the minimum we can get away with. This one now needs to be aligned here. So this is going to be an edge, and this is just going to be flowing in, position influencer 1, so all the CVs join up, edge and edge on there. And then we want to project this onto here. Now this will still throw the CVs up in the air, and this will still be a problem. And so we now need to fix that. So this is going to be one where we maybe try and align that way. So it breaks this here. So I've got edge on, and it's only 0.004. So I'm hoping that will go. I'll get rid of the curve on surface because you don't want that one. Better to create a fresh one again, project in the Z direction, that one into there. Okay, doesn't want to know. Let's try G1, doesn't want to know. G0 doesn't want to know. So this is going to be a problem, isn't it? Now we could split that up even more if we wanted to, but I always think it's worth just trying at least. Let's put loads of mouse sensitivity on here and just see if I can. I know this will affect the position on the edge, but we might be able to just move some points and keep it in position. So I can move it up to a point, and it will actually improves the curvature on the left, even though it's very counterintuitive that would happen. But and that point as well helps a little bit. But there'll come a point where it break the position, of course, and then these points can break the tangency, of course. But again, it might be possible. It's bringing the curvature down. Oh, so it's moved it all the way from here to the other end, which is good news, because if it's at the other end, then we're more likely to be able to fix it now. So let's just try that. Now that went green at one point. So if it goes green, if you suddenly see it flashing green, what you want to then do is put loads of mouse sensitivity on. So I'm just going to make a ridiculous number in there, and that will slow it right down, and hopefully that will go green and be more controllable. There we go. So the manual method's definitely worth persevering with. I mean, it'll be frustrating, I know, but to start with, but it's also quite satisfying when you manage to do it without having to split everything down into millions of surfaces. And then we need to align this way. So this is going to need a higher degree to do that. If I try and align this one into here, of course, that's going to break this, which we don't want. So we've got to do it this way, I think. Let's try that. So this is going to need a higher degree. So it's definitely not going to work to start with. And quite clearly, so we're going to need the same degree, and it's breaking the position there inevitably. We've got enough CVs going this way. We've got degree 5, so this is separate to this, so that's good. We've got position influencer 1, so our CVs all line up. It's edge to edge, so nice flowing edge there. So we just need to fix that position there. So this one, I'm going to untrim that surface. I'm going to delete that curve on surface and reproject that onto there. And we might have to increase the degree here, possibly. Let's see what we can get away with. So it's breaking the angle there. So let's just go and increase the degree. And I can't always see which degree it is, but it's that one there. Now that's actually not made any difference to that angle at all. So I'll just go back to 5, or no significant difference. We could try just G1, and it's made the curvature now, the break is up here, which is more possible to deal with. Let's see if this is curvature aligned. Wow, it is. That's good news. So this one here, we've got this tiny little error here. So let's go into mass sensitivity. I've got a ridiculous number on there, but let's see if that has any impact. It might be that that number's far too big and that we have to drop that back down again. So let's try, let's just try 50. So that's changing it. I saw it go green there. So that's a clue is to that. It's the mass sensitivity just needs to go up a touch or down a touch. Right, it goes green again. There we go. So that mass sensitivity is a key thing to keep an eye on. Now, what I've forgotten, of course, in all of this, all the excitement of getting all of this aligned is about this edge, which we haven't aligned in position, which I should have done, but I should have done that first. So first of all, I'm going to isolate that surface. Got a curve on surface there. I just want to delete all of the curves on surface there so that we don't get any confusion about which one we're picking up. And that's when all of the locators disappear. I just realized. Right, so let's go into, this is annoying that it all goes off, but we're not interested in everything now. We want that one in there, that one there, yeah, because we trimmed this surface back now. In fact, we did have that aligned, didn't we, at one point? And so let's just hope it's getting to that point where I'm saving every couple of minutes, really. And so I want to align that in with projection on in the Z direction there. Now, why on earth has that changed that? That should not be changing that. If I say revert, it's still saying that. So that what's gone on there? That's very bizarre. Evaluate surface connection. Whoa, I don't know why that's changed. That shouldn't have changed. Makes no sense at all. So let's go into object edit, and I'm going to align it to that edge because it's so microscopically small. I think this is the one I manually moved. So maybe it's just gone, it's so small that I think I'm just going to manually do it. I'll just move it normal to the surface with mass sensitivity of 500 on. So just by touching that point, I didn't even move it. It's so that one, the trouble is with that one, it's affecting curvature that way. So let's try this one. What's going on here? Let's just move it in the Z direction. It's just moving as soon as I touch it. I'm going to move it in the Z direction and see if that's any better. There we go. So it's so small that it was just a little manual movement. I think maybe when I trimmed it, it's changed the edge very, very slightly and caused a problem. So we want this one here. So let's go back into here. So I think when I aligned it, it didn't actually change this edge because I thought, how is it changing that edge? All I've asked for is G0. I think what it was just updating the locator on that edge. So this is position. Obviously, that's going to break because I forgot that I needed to align these in position. So I'm hoping that if I now align this one in position, that will come back is very close. And then we want to align that one in position as well. Oh, thank goodness, that's all fine. This one was one we fixed before, and I had some ridiculous mass sensitivity on. Let's just go with 5,000 and see whether that's going to work. Oh, did it then? Right, that's it. Don't breathe on it. Right, then we can trim this back, and with a lot of relief, we'll save that again. Oh, right. Let's. I'm going to delete all the locators, and then I'm just going to run. Oh, so we've got this surface. Actually, I haven't trimmed that one out. So that's that enormous surface, which is not actually strictly necessary. And then we're going to go into evaluate. We're going to do a check mod on everything with just checking the tolerances are correct. Yes, and then we do this check here. Of course, it's going to pick up on that edge, which we're actually not interested in. We are interested in these gaps. So there's a gap there, which I wasn't expecting. I thought I'd fixed all this lot. There's curvature there. Again, not interested. We're not interested in those angles there. You can't really, I mean, you can to some extent get rid of those displays when you don't want that display. So if I said, let me just delete all of the locators again. To some extent, you can get rid of the ones that you didn't want, but not entirely. And that's through this tangent angle maximum. So if I set that to, I wouldn't set it any lower than 4 degrees, to be honest. But if I did set it to, say, 1 degree, which I'm not recommending, you do a check on it and it won't pick up on all the tangency. I mean, it has actually picked up on this. The other one is the curvature maximum. It's picked up on curvature, which we're not interested in because it's curvature on a sharp edge, which doesn't mean anything. So you can't really eliminate those from this menu. You just have to understand that if you've got a tangent break between things, you're going to get a tangent locator because it's saying it's out of tolerance. I would keep that at 4 degrees, to be honest. So it'll only pick up on angles less than 4 degrees. The other thing you can do is you can just run just the G0. So you can say, right, are there any gaps? And there's a gap there. So it's worth doing that. Just makes it easier to see. And then in that area, then I would manually put the diagnostics on around there. So it's a very small amount. So I'm going to just align that with, I've got position influence of, I mean, I've just aligned it in position, but of course we need curvature on there. So I usually, it's another situation where that tiny little change, you may find that curvature is actually okay. So that's all right now. There is another way of checking whether the model is completely watertight, what they call watertight, meaning that, you know, all the gaps are closed up. Obviously there's gaps here because we haven't actually finished the model yet in this area. But there's another way of doing this, or another check that you can do, which is worth doing. So if I just take all of the CVs off, just going to save it under the same name again, just because we've fixed that position now. But you can go into, just trying to think where it is. So it's either under object or, I have a feeling it could be under, it's either going to be under object. Here we go, surface edit. So you've got this function called stitch. So if I go into there, there's nothing in that menu that you need to worry about. You just pick everything. I can also see there's some history on there, so I want to get rid of that in a second. So if you just hit the space bar and stitch it, it tells you the yellow is just all the bits that are the actual edges of the part. So there is going to be a piece of yellow down here because I've not finished that bit of the model. It also gives you some little arrows. Really, I wouldn't worry too much about these, but because they're usually tiny little gaps. So you can see that what's happened there actually is that my surfaces have crossed over slightly. And so everything seems to be aligned, but actually there's a little bit of a problem there. And strictly speaking, I should fix that. But I'm not going to worry about it because it all otherwise joins up. On this one here, that's just telling us that that's one edge. So up here, it actually tells you it says it's created one shell. In other words, this is one shell. So like if you had two separate parts, you get two shells with three boundaries. So the three boundaries are indicated by these arrows. So there's a little boundary there which isn't quite right, but I don't think I'm going to bother to fix that. And then if we do Control Z at this point, we get back to the surfaces. If you don't do that, if you complete it, then you end up with a stitched part. So if you do end up with that and you think, oh God, what do I do with this? Because it's now one object, it's a stitched part, you can go into unstitch, and unstitch does that. So it brings them all back again, puts all the CVs on so you can see them, and just gives you back the original surfaces. So it hasn't changed anything. It's just another way of checking that the model is actually all watertight, that all of the edges are position aligned. Now I suppose what we should do is put our highlights on again, take the edges off, just have a look at that. I notice there's something a bit weird going on there actually. Yeah, there's something definitely not quite right there, but the rest of it looks okay, the bits that we've been working on today anyway. And that bit there, yeah, it's to do with these surfaces in here, which is a complex area. So that does need a look at some point. I think probably if you shaded it up in that mode, you might not see it very much. It does sort of, there's a little bit of a hiccup there, but I think for a concept model that would be absolutely acceptable, because if you can't see it in this sort of shading or when you render it up, it's really not important. But okay, so just going to save that once more. I think the next thing we need to start doing, I want to try and finish this rather than working on the other bits, just because we haven't actually got to a point of detailing anything. It would be nice to just get some detail into here. We've started doing this bonnet detail here, so let's just change the color of that. So we've got those surfaces here, and we need to get those back into place, and we also need to add in this part of the cutout there, and we need to cover up these transition points, because we've got this surface here that's at an angle and then washes out into nothing, so we need to get that in as well. So let's start off with looking at that, and so because we've done some changes on here, this inevitably has broken again. We have to fix that. We've also introduced, I mean, if you look at the way these surfaces go, they stick up above that surface now, because we've changed this surface, we changed this surface. So we need to get this all back into place here. So let's put our CVs on here. And we can't align this as it stands. We've got to get that into that corner. Now this corner, we've split this up, of course, and it looks like that's just one corner, but when I zoomed into there, I realized that actually that's not quite, there's two corners, there's that one and that one, so we've actually got to split this at this point, not the other one, otherwise that won't work. So I'm going to put in, I'm going to use this trick with the construction again, is put that point in there so that we've clearly got that in the right place, and it's only by zooming in that I've realized that that's what we need to do. And then we can go into Object Edit, Detach, and we can detach that, and I can just use Control and click on that point there, so we've got it in the right spot. The other thing is, although I've detached that at the right spot, well, you can see it's not actually coming quite at the right spot at all. So I think what I'm going to do there is just, I'm going to take this one, and it's because it's not actually sitting on that geometry. I'm just going to visually take that to there, and then I'm going to manually move that point onto that point there, just to make absolutely certain that that's where we're going. And we'll do the same thing in here. The distance I'm moving it is probably microscopic, so I just move that there and just make sure that's there, because otherwise what will happen is that I'll be trying to align things and it just won't align, and I'll think, what's going on? So by actually manually positioning on that point, we just make absolutely certain. And it's also slightly confusing because I thought this was a triangle. It's not quite a triangle. It's sort of, it doesn't matter because we're going to be filleting over all of this anyway. The fact that those lines don't quite all come together doesn't matter as long as we pick up this point and we align into this edge. That should work fine. So I'm now going to align these together. So let's go into Object Edit here. So we're going to align that into there. I don't know whether that's a partial edge or not. I mean, it depends whether it's a partial edge or not. Depends on whether we built that curve on surface from one curve all the way through here, or whether we've built it from two. And you can see it's actually all the way across there. So it was obviously 2 bits. So I want to do that. Ideally, position influence of 0, so it doesn't actually move it around. And the other thing is very subtle, but this is what we've done before. We've always picked up with blending, just picked up that center row of CVs there with blend factor of 1 on, so that it blends smoothly as possible from one end to the other. And then on this one again, that's going to be a partial edge. Now this one hasn't quite got the position 0.002, so we'll just put some position influence of maybe up to 1 on that one. Maybe that won't work either, so it's still 0.002. So that one's one where we're going to have to realign that one. So I'm going to just untrim that, get rid of that curve on surface, reproject it. Before we do that, we should align it on this end, and probably we should align that in position that way, I think, so we get the neighboring surfaces aligned. So let's align that one into here. So if I hadn't picked up on that point, then this wouldn't be going to the corner. I do need to check that it does go to the corner because it might not. With blending, I've got more CVs this time, so I need to pick up on two sets of CVs there. I am going to zoom into there and just make sure, absolutely certain, that that is actually still on that corner, because if it's not, then we're going to have alignment problems. It seems to be that is the case. So I'm going to align this one G2 on both ends. Don't want blending on, probably. Well, I do want blending on actually, but with different settings. So I want to pick up that middle hull there. So I'm going to put position influence of 1 on, so the CVs are exactly the same as this spacing. Not that it made any difference, we couldn't see any difference. And then I'm going to pick up that center one there, and then we'll do the same thing on this end. So we're picking up the center one again, but that one looks slightly worryingly all over the place. But when I did that, you can see it's lifted that up a lot, and it's because I'm trying to align it in curvature, and it may well be that we don't want to do that. It's because we're transitioning across all of these surfaces. This could be a bit tricky. Again, another tricky area. Don't think there's any areas that haven't been tricky, to be honest. I'm just going to align these in here because I need to do that. So let's align those in position. G0, project, Z. That one's going to be, it's also going to be, now, I bet I made a mistake here, because you see those two overlap each other because this isn't trimmed anymore, and I bet I picked up the wrong surface on here, and then I probably aligned it to the top surface, not the bottom surface. I've done exactly that, haven't I? So let's go and get rid of that. Hopefully that's the case, because that would explain why it lifted it up so much. It didn't. It struck me as being odd. So let's go and blend that. Now I need to make sure I pick the corner surface, not the other one. So let's go and pick it there, and I want blend. Hopefully, hopefully that is the case. So if I do that, then G2 onto this end. Yeah, that's still lifting it up a lot. In the Z direction, it looks absolutely fine. So there is an issue there, and so let's revert that. Okay, so maybe I'm going to have to do it the other way. So I'm going to do G0, project it into this surface, and we want blend, picking up those 2 rows in the middle, and then we can trim this back, hopefully. Yeah. And I'm going to just do these ones now, just for completeness here. So let's align G0. These are also going to be blending because they've only got degree 2 going across. It's only going to need to pick up the center hole. Now it's not picked it up, even though I put in extra rows there, it didn't pick it up. So I'm going to have to wake this up by changing the value. So it should have woken it up, but it didn't. I can probably drop the degree of that quite a lot by those things, but of course you might break the position there, so we want to check that. And I'll put that one in there as well. So that it did break that one, sadly, but not a problem. We just I should have put the diagnostic on first, of course, but it's just we don't need blending on there. We just need to increase the degree there until that aligns. Okay, we do need to go all the way up to degree 6 to match the degree of that surface. That's what's happening there. This one again, I'll project in Z here with blending on, just picking up the center one. The chances of this actually being still aligned in G2, there is a chance it'll still be aligned because we did have G2 on there. No, and the same on that one. And then we can go into G0 here, but make sure that one's okay. So let's see if we can align these ones. G2, take blending off edge. That one. So it's breaking the continuity there. We've got position inference of 1 on, which is correct. Now we're not getting curvature there. This might be a case of just sliding that up and down a little bit, backwards and forwards. Maybe that one. Worth a try. You can get a clue from if you use tangent balance. There we go. Tangent balance will make it 100%, but it does move the CVs. But actually, it wasn't that disastrous. So I think I'd move those CVs. Obviously, it's left the middle one behind. So strictly speaking, we ought to pick up that one if we wanted to be very fussy about it. So it just pulls that one a little bit as well. And then, of course, this edge has broken. And we'll need to realign that one. So I'm G0 project Z into there. Now it'll break the curvature that way, but let's just increase the degree. So that's fine. Great. I didn't put blending on, but the distance that we're moving is tiny, so blending is not significant. Now this one here, let's have a look and see. I'm going to try and align this left-hand one because it's got higher degree into the right-hand one and see whether that works. It's breaking it there, so let's try G1. That's almost on, and let's see if this has actually reached G2. No, it hasn't. So we've got to go for G2. We might also, because that now makes the gap a bit bigger. Let's go vector Z, so that's a bit closer. Let's go get rid of that curve on surface. I'm going to stop in a minute, but so align there, project. Almost there. And we've got degree 6, so let's just try degree 7. Didn't make any difference, so we might as well go back to that. And we could, the other thing we could try here actually, because we've got, we've had very low degree on these surfaces, we could just try aligning this that way instead. So let's try aligning the right hand to the left hand and just making the degree higher. There we go. So that's helped. And then let's have a look. So we haven't got anything to trim this back to. So this corner, I can see that's going to be a problem. So I think I'll leave that one till next time.